Answer for that one should be a -8. Answer for this one should be a -2.
Ew.
For this problem, you're putting in a -1, so with a smaller marker, there we go. -1 going in here is going to give me a -3. Squared is 9 times 3 is -27. Plus 4 comes from this, and then minus 2. So that's going to be a -23 minus 2, which is a -25. We have 13 out of 23, and that's a percent of 57. If you had credit for your homework, pick a number from 1 to 20. The winning numbers are 1, 2, 6, 12, and 19. Here's a multiple choice before we get to the homework answers. Block letter only. The answer for this should be -20, which is A. Here are the homework answers. On number 1, it's going to be the same scoring as before. You get 1 point for the axis of symmetry, which in this case is a -2/3. You get 1 point for having both zeros correct, which is -1/3 and -1. And you also get a point for the vertex, which in this case is -2/3 and -1/3. So this is the graph for number 1. Here's number 2. The zeros are -2, -1. Axis of symmetry is -3/2, which is a -1.5. And the vertex is -1.5 and a half. Here's the graph for number 2. Here's number 3. The zeros are -0.6 and -1.1. Axis of symmetry is -1. And the vertex is going to be -1, -1. This is the rational root theorem, and it is another way of finding the roots of an equation, which are going to be your zeros. So here's example 1. You have 3x squared plus 2x minus 1. And the ways that we have found the roots before were to factor it if we could, or we've used the quadratic formula. But now here's a third way. And for what I'm showing you on this screen for this problem is the way to figure out all of the possible roots of an equation. Not that everything you list is going to actually work. It gives you the list of all possible roots. So that when you get into larger polynomials and ones that you just can't factor nice and neat into two different quantities, and you can't use the quadratic formula, this is a way that you know what all of the possible roots are. And then you could go back and check each one to see if they actually work. So here's the shortest one we're going to use. It's a quadratic equation, so we're going to start at the bottom. What you do is this. You create a list of all possible factors of your constant term, which we're going to call that C, and then your leading term, we call that L. And you're just concentrating on the numbers, -1 and 3. You start with what could be possible with your factors of your constant term. What will factor out of a -1? 1 and -1. So you can condense it and make it just plus or minus 1. And if you have no other factors that you could take out of a -1, then you're finished with that part of it. So then you go to the leading term, which is 3. And what you will do is put each of these that you found for the constant, all of those factors you're going to list, plus or minus, and in this case it's plus or minus 1. And you will put those over the factors of the leading term. What can come out of the leading term other than 1 and negative 1? 3. So that's it. Your possible roots for this equation are going to be plus or minus 1 and plus or minus 1/3. Those are the only possible roots. The question was, shouldn't you put a negative 3 in here as well as a positive 3? And the answer is no, because this plus or minus sign takes care of that. Because if you put a negative there, whatever's on top, it'll change the sign. So in other words, you still come up with the 2 possibilities. Here's example 2. You have x to the 6th, and then you have 64, negative 64, whatever you want to call it on the back end. So this is our constant term there, and what's our leading term?
X will be 1.
Just 1, yeah, just the leading coefficient. So we have 64 to start with, and that's where you go first, is to find all the factors of 64. And don't forget those are plus or minus.
Would you leave the negative in there with it? Or would you just ignore it?
It won't matter because when you write them out, it'll be plus or minus. So it's not going to matter. So your factors of 64, you can have a plus or minus 1. What else goes into 64?
64.
In order.
2.
2. Will 3 go into it? What about 4?
Yes.
4 will. What about 5? 6? 7? 8?
Yes.
Yes. What's next? 9 will not go into 64.
I know 16 does.
16 is the next one. What's next? 32, right. What's next? 64, yeah. So those are all the possible factors of 64.
So when we do this for homework, will we have to write out all these? Like
Yes.
that? Okay.
Yeah. Now, since your leading term is 1, where does your leading term go when you start finding your second set of possible solutions? Does it go on top or the bottom?
The bottom.
It goes on the bottom, and if you put a 1 on the bottom, does that change anything?
No.
No, so this is it. You can't do any more than that. All right, here's a practice problem. Find all of the possible roots of this polynomial. You start with the constant term, 10. And the factors of 10 are plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 5, and then plus or minus 10. But when you go to move or put these over the leading term, it's just 1, so it doesn't change anything. So if you have all of these written out, come up and collect. If the problem is f of x equals, and we'll make this 6x squared minus 3x plus 8, then you would go find all of your constant term factors first, and that's from this. So that would be plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 4, and then plus or minus 8. So now you have to find all of these factors. And those factors by themselves are not possible roots automatically. It just means you have to have the list. So do this one off to the underside there, just real quick, as scratch work, and you would come up with plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 3, and plus or minus 6. Now, which one of those factors in red don't we really need?
2. 3. 1.
The 1, because we're going to be putting it on the bottom and it doesn't change anything. So that one you don't need. And you don't even have to write it from here on out, and that's just for this term here. So what you have to do for each of these, look at how many you have. You have 1, 2, 3 of them that you're going to have to put underneath everything that you just found. So you've already written it once. So go ahead and do it again. Plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2. I have 2 commas, but no big deal. Plus or minus 4 and plus or minus 8. And one more time. Plus or minus 4 and then plus or minus 8. So you would go through and put each of these underneath of that, but not the plus or minus sign, because you already have one in the blue. You just need the numbers. So you would go through and do all of these here by 2. And then do the next set by 3. And then the next set by 6. And once you have those, you may end up with some duplicates that you don't have to write twice in your final answer. But we'll go through and simplify each of these if necessary. Do I have to simplify this one? No. What about this one?
Yeah.
It just becomes plus or minus 1. So we'll knock that one out and replace it with plus or minus 1. What about the next one?
Plus or minus 2.
Yeah, plus or minus 2. And then what about the next one?
Plus or minus 4.
Yeah, we'll come up with a plus or minus 4. Okay, now to the next row. Anything to simplify in the first one? Second one? Third one? Fourth one? No. You can just leave them that way. And you can leave them as improper fractions. On a test where I need to be able to grade quickly and not have to look at 2 different solutions, I would give you a direction that says change everything to a mixed number if necessary. Or leave it as an improper fraction reduced if necessary. What about the bottom row first one? Second one? Plus or minus 1/3. And the next one?
Minus 2/3.
Yeah, plus or minus 2/3. Do we already have one? We already have a plus or minus 2/3?
Yes.
So we don't need 2 of them, so just knock this one out. Whichever one you want to knock out. What about 8 over 6? 4 over 3. Do we already have one of those?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's just knock that one out. So you end up with, and I'll do this with a laser pointer here or a hand, whatever. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now don't forget, when we first wrote these down, remember this first line that was up here? Where it was just 1, 2, 4, and 8, and we got that from the 8 in the back? That in and of itself stands alone as possible roots. So I've marked over these so I could have room for those 3 lines. Don't forget to leave those as possible roots, which would be 1, plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 4, and then plus or minus 8. Do those duplicate anything that's in there?
Yeah.
Which one?
1, 2.
1, 2, and 4, yeah. So the only thing you would have to leave would be the 8. I just don't have enough room on the screen to have 4 lines on there, so I used my first one for that.
You don't need your 8 over 3 or your 1 over 3.
Yeah, it's there. There's nothing to cancel it out with.
I know, but can you write that down as your answer, or is it just 8?
Yeah, it's in the list of possible solutions.
So you would make another line with all of those?
No. This I just didn't have enough room on the screen. This, when we found the factors of this here, we wrote it down right here. And your list of factors from the 8 stands by itself as a list of possible factors. But I scratched over them and made 2 more lines so that I could accommodate dividing by the 2, 3, and 6 that we have. But when I scratched over it, it erased them. So you have to leave the 8. The list of factors of 8 must be included.
Okay, but is there going to be a bottom line? Like, is it going to look like a fraction, or is it just going to be one line? Like,
no, these are it by themselves. Your factors of 8 were 1, 2, 4, and 8.
And then are we going to do it plus or minus 1/2?
No, you
Then
want.
what are those for?
No. The question I thought you were asking is if we have to divide these by anything, and we do not. Was that not the question?
No, she means like when we write down the answer.
Yeah, all of these will be your answers here. This one, and this one, 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 this one.
Okay.
As well as this one, because this is your original line from this.
And they're all going to be in one line. There's not going to
Right.
be like a line and then some on the bottom, some on the top.
If you made two different lines, it's fine with me. Just whatever room you need to write all the possible solutions down is
I
fine.
get it. I just meant like it's not going
Here's the bonus. Just solve it. Answer is -2, -3. Here's another bonus. Solve it. Answer on the bonus is -2, 3.